And life is a test, but not every day is a test. And not every time that your knowledge is going to come in. There's a lot of practicality in this life. For me, sports teaches you a lot of life skills. A lot of the volunteer work that I did teaches you a lot of life skills that are going to be utilized later. When you're so focused on studies, you think that's what the world's going to be about. Do you know how many times I worked hard and I didn't get the job? How many times I worked hard but was looked over for a promotion? These grades that you're getting are setting you up for the wrong expectations, that life is going to be fair, that whatever you put in is going to be put out. That's not how life is, right? But the pressure that these kids go through, and however myopic and laser focused their life is, they learn nothing about life. They learn about how to get good grades, and your job and life is not about how to get good grades. The people that love you the most will give you some really tough feedback. Sure. You can choose to ignore it or you can choose to work on it. You always have a certain time at a company and you need to know when your time's up. I think if you work hard in your 20s, you're investing in yourself. I think if you opt to go for an MBA later on in life, you're investing in yourself. I think if you're honest with yourself, you're investing in yourself. Invest in yourself in your 20s to reap benefits in your 30s and your 40s. I think that you can get a lot of money, but you have to prove your worth. So the higher you ask for, the higher the expectation. So be very careful when you're asking for crazy amounts of money.
Hi everybody, today I have a really special guest, Fatima Mazhar. She is a veteran in the startup space. You've played a really key role, Fatima, in expanding many of Pakistan's biggest startups, whether you call it Careem, KeepTruckin, now Motive, and you've also played a really key role in COLABS, which is Pakistan's fastest growing co-working space. I would like to call it more of a community in a sense, because I think there's so much that you're doing there. And now I think you're stepping more into a role of a consultant and an advisor for startups. So mashallah, you've had a really, really good journey. And I think for me personally, it's been such an inspiration because I've been following your work since the Careem days. So
oh my God.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, because I think back then, honestly, there weren't many women in the space. To add to that, many strong women in the space. And I think it's really good. For me, I honestly, like, it motivates me a lot as well. But Fatima, if you can walk me through your childhood and also your teens, and, you know, kyunki har bande ka ye keeda hota hai, you know, like, ye startup wala jo keeda hai, was it always there within you, or did it sort of develop over time?
Oh, I wish I could say it was within me. I mean, when I look at my journey and when I talk to people, look, I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. I sometimes still think that I do not know what I want to do in life. I did know that I grew up in a family full of male cousins. So I didn't ever feel like I was female. I grew up wrestling because, you know, there was no, I'm 41 years old. So I'm talking about like growing up in the 80s, I was allowed 1 hour of TV time and the rest had to be outdoors. The rest had to be everywhere. So I got into a lot of sports really early on.
Nice.
My dad is very athletic. My brother is really athletic. My mom was athletic. So I started playing cricket at a very young age. And I started riding horses at a really young age. And that's the advantage of, you know, growing up in an army background, because you had these cantonments and you had all these children that came out to play. So my routine was go to school, come back, finish your homework, go out to Maghrib, come back, watch TV for an hour and go to sleep. My childhood was beautiful. I was in a different city every 2 years because my dad moved a lot. I met new people. So that's, I think, talking to a lot of people that I do right now comes from always knowing new people. But I focused a lot, very less on studies and a lot more on sports. So growing up, horse riding and cricket. I mean, if you follow me, you know, I'm like a crazy cricket fan until now. So I think growing up a lot more than what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, I just knew I wanted to be outdoors. I wanted to be competing and I wanted to be the best.
Nice. Okay.
Whatever I did, I've done karate, I've done, you know, gymnastics for a bit, cricket, and then horse riding. But I wanted to be the best. So I think there's certain things that come in your life.
I think in your family environment, it's been really supportive as well, you know, because these are really unconventional choices for sports for women. But I'm all pro that, because I think for me as well, like growing up, my dad wasn't in the army, but we've lived in Quetta for, I think, the first initial part of my childhood. So we were living in Quetta, Kent as well. So, you know, playing with kids, cricket on the streets and stuff like that. I think that was the best part, honestly, hands down. So
whenever anyone asks me, describe the best years of your childhood, I talk about Quetta. We were posted there twice. Once when my dad was a student at Staff College and once when he was an instructor. So during the time he was an instructor, I was in Quetta riding playing cricket for my school team, Beacon House at that moment.
Right.
And I was part of the athletics team, like the national athletics team, because there was a coach, far-sighted coach, who put me in the team and said, compete, and I won gold medal. So Quetta for me has been the most beautiful part of my childhood. So I can imagine what you're talking about.
Shout out to Quetta. But Fatma, how has it been for you, like as a student? Because I was watching your podcast with Muzammil as well, and I was surprised, but also like pleasantly surprised. I was like, yeah, ye baat humne lazmi baat karni hai, because there's so many kids out there. Every August, every October, everybody's getting crushed by these, GCE results. People are very hopeless, and I think the hopelessness basically comes from the hope that is attached to these grades. Har saal we get crushed into this entire process ki matlab, we're not going anywhere only because I have such grades or whatever. But you have made an entire life for yourself, and grades, honestly, I feel like now at least you don't really attach too much of your career progress to that. But how has it been for you as a student in terms of education as well?
Look, I was never a really bright student. I was a very lazy student. I had this ability to go in class, and if I'd heard it once, I don't have a photographic memory, but if I'd heard a concept once, I could do it. So people would study a lot more and I had to study a lot less. But I really paid a lot of attention in class. My parents really cared about grades, but I realized that grades represent how well you can test. And life is a test, but not every day is a test. And not every time that your knowledge is going to come in. There's a lot of practicality in this life. So what's happening is, there's students that are doing 10 A stars, and I'm really proud of them. I have a couple of them in my family, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But the focus is going away from other life skills, right? For me, sports teaches you a lot of life skills. A lot of the volunteer work that I did teaches you a lot of life skills that are going to be utilized later. When you're so focused on studies, you think that's what the world's going to be about, that you're going to work hard and you're going to get an excellent result. Do you know how many times I worked hard and I didn't get the job? How many times I worked hard but was looked over for a promotion? These grades that you're getting are setting you up for the wrong expectations, that life is going to be fair, that whatever you put in is going to be put out. That's not how life is, right? Wow. So you just really need to think about how to get yourself back up. I think the first time I got those 3 Ds in A-levels was the first time I had a setback in life. And I said, where do I go from here? Right. And my life has been a constant struggle of, okay, this has happened. Where do I go from here? But because I had those 3 Ds and I had to face criticism at a very early age, a lot of embarrassment, I knew how to pick myself up. And you got to do that all by yourself. So the first time, there was massive layoffs at the company, and I was really, really performing well, and I was laid off because I was a girl and my father could take care of me. His words, not mine. It didn't hurt as much. And so then the next time I was overlooked for a promotion, it hurt even less. So you get to a point where you're like, life is not fair. You will put in 100% and maybe get a 90%. Sometimes you put 70% and get 110%. You have to adjust those expectations. So I think it's great, but the pressure that these kids go through, and however myopic and laser focused their life is, they learn nothing about life. They learn about how to get good grades, and your job and life is not about how to get good grades. Right?
If you could go back, like if we can walk down the memory lane, like what have your goals looked like back then and what do they look like right now?
So my goals in my 20s were that I had to be the top appreciated person in the organization. I had to work the hardest. I had to get, I probably had something called the hero complex, where I was like, okay, if I'm not the best, I'm not going to do well. My job is my everything. My work is my everything. It's only in the last few years I've realized, and certain things have happened, some really hurtful things have happened where, I sorry my butt off for a company and they've had a reunion and they've forgotten to invite me. And I'm like, well, but I gave my life to this company, right? So what I've realized now is I've toned down a lot more. I've realized that the appreciation is not going to come. And that a lot of us crave that. And I've seen this in the people that I work with. And that kills you because that's a high. That's a kind of a drug.
Absolutely.
That you get appreciated. And when you don't, it really is a downer, right? So I've realized that I'm going to give my 100%. And if the result is there, well and good. If not, I know I've tried 100%. And I'm going to appreciate myself. And I'm not going to kill myself over a job. At the end of the day, yes, this is a job. But you know what? Life, I need to have some sort of balance in life.
Absolutely.
And so what has changed is the need for appreciation is gone. What people say about me that it's still there. It still hurts a little bit. But then I realized that no matter what you do, whether I was at the peak of my career launching head of expansion for Careem, or at the bottom, which has been the last few months, and we'll talk about that because I think it's very important to talk about the last few months, people are still going to talk. The people that want to talk will talk about you then. They'll talk about you then. I'm playing polo right now. And I'm the only girl at the moment that's playing polo in Pakistan. There were a few girls last year
Oh my God.
in my city. In Lahore, sorry.
Right. Yes.
And, I have to go over all sorts of things like, oh, look at this girl. She's hanging out with polo players. Oh, look at this girl. Where does she get all the money from? Look, I'm making my own money. I'm spending it. So I get a little bothered by certain things. But at a job environment, at a work environment, if I think it, I will say it. I will not keep quiet because I'm a woman and I'll keep quiet.
I love that. I love that. Yes.
Sometimes my tone is rude, but you have to realize that to be heard as a woman, you have to say things a bit louder. Otherwise, you'll get talked over. And the other thing I've realized, mainly in Pakistan, is people will hire strong women for the aesthetics and not for the value that they bring in. So as far as you're telling the world outside that we've got this girl, she's worked at Careem, she's done this, but inside your closed door meeting, when I'm saying, hey, I don't think you should do it this way, I think you should do it that way, I will be told, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I know what I'm talking about. Or this is my business. I know what I'm talking about, right? So I would get really emotional about that kind of stuff. And then I'm like, okay, it's your business. Here's my opinion. Here's what I believe. If you take it, you take it. You don't take it, you don't take it. The Fatima of at the age of 20 would cry about it, yell and scream, complain to everyone. And so I am very lucky because I've had some really good people in my life that have given me some really good advice. Some I still talk to, some I don't talk to because their advice at that time seemed really, really harsh. There's a great friend of mine. Her name's Hadir. She gave me tough love and I stopped talking to her. And I still, I love her. I don't talk to her, right? And she said, you lose a lot of people if you keep acting the way you're acting, right? And that helped. Magnus Olson from Careem, he's the founder at Careem, said, you have a hero complex and your need for appreciation is exhausting. And these are things that have stayed with me and I've worked for 5-6 years on them. The people that love you the most will give you some really tough feedback. You can choose to ignore it or you can choose to work on it. I'm still a work in progress. I still have a lot to do, but I now stand my ground and I stand by my decisions. I've left a few jobs recently at very short notices and it's gotten me in trouble where the next people that I'm talking to are saying, why don't you stay longer? So if you're going to be pissed off at my job, are you going to leave? I said, yes, life's too short. I am talented. Yes. I know what I bring to the table. And if you're not able to satisfy me, I will walk away because a job is not supposed to enclose you. And that's what we need to change, right? This is why millennials and Gen Z are doing a lot better. They switch for less money. And so things will have to change. But it's a lot of work. Look, if we're talking over here, it seems like it's been easy, but it's been years of hating myself, always thinking that we're less than men. Me always thinking I'm less than a man. It's only in the last few years that I've really worked on myself and said, no, I am good enough. I will ask for the same money. If I'm not given the money that I'm happy with, I'll sit at home. If I'm not given the respect I deserve, I'm going to sit at home. I played polo for the past 6 months. It was great. Not 6 months, but 3 months. But it was great.
Wow.
So I think if we have more people acting that way, the job environment will be better. And I think more women will be able to go smoothly into the work space.
I think, to be honest, there's a lot of women. I mean, most of us, I think, feel the same way, to be honest. It's just that some people act, like you mentioned, act on what you actually think. And some people just choose to, I can't do anything about it. Let's just let it be. Just let it be. Because I think that's also very inherent in our culture, right? The compromising attitude that we're sort of told and nurtured into as we're growing up. So, yeah.
I think the worst person I've done as a woman in tech or woman in leadership positions is kept quiet about what we go through. And that was because I wanted to get accepted. And I wanted to seem cool. It's not like my journey's been easy. You can imagine what companies I've worked for, which regions I've worked in. It hasn't been easy, but I thought I'd be the cool person and say, no. If you work hard, No, I work 10x harder than anyone else to get where I am, and I still don't have the recognition. I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, I launched Careem in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that was the guy that, that guy, I heard him on a podcast and it was somebody else. I was like, no, I literally launched in Pakistan. No, you know what? It's not conceivable that Fatima Mazhar could have launched it. And then I feel like maybe I didn't. Or like, am I? So when you talk about people,
yourself, then yeah.
you question yourself and you do realize that you look like I was talking to somebody that I potentially I'm going to work with, right?
Wow.
And he's like, but like I heard this podcast and this person was saying this, and I was like, oh my God, does he doubt me? Like I really did this. So there's a lot of work that you do that the credit is always taken. And the difference between men and women, I've noticed, because I've seen it now with the women that I work with or the men that I work with, men will easily take credit for 1/4 of what they've done, and women will give their credit for like 100% of what they've done. And this is not always true, but most of the time, and it was in my case. So we keep quiet or we react. I'm not going to say we. I'm going to say me, because I can't speak for women, right? So I would react in an emotional, childish way. I would not even say emotional. I would act in a childish way. I would not control my emotions. And then it would become a thing, right? But if I had logically said, hey guys, this is what I've done and this is what I've done, and I deserve credit for it, it would have been different. The way I reacted most of the time turned into, Fatma's so emotional, she's going to act like a child, that kind of stuff. We can't give her a senior position because, she acts out. I've seen men do 100% worse.
Yeah.
With their language, with the way they act, but still it's okay, right? So those barriers, I feel like I've broken a little bit now. People are scared of me. Not that I want them to, but I think I've gotten some level of respect.
Yes.
There are going to be a few announcements that are coming, and I'll send them to you soon.
For sure.
That will at least there's some recognition in the country as well. So that's very nice.
Yeah.
And but it's not been easy. I was raised in a family where, essentially they wanted me to get a good education and then get married. Yeah. My mom, on the other hand, always wanted me to have a job. She said that to be dependent on a man is a very difficult thing. So you'll always have a job, but they didn't think that I was going to do what I was going to be able to do, right? And so from that to going to the US to study, to then saying, I don't think I want to get married as a Pakistani woman, and I'm still not married. Yes. Saying I don't want to be married because I think marriage is going to bound me, to actually living my life fully. Like I feel like if somebody were to ask me, what do you want to do in life? I can say at 41, I've done everything that I wanted to. Maybe there are certain things that I want to do now, but
I love that so much. Oh my God, I love that so much. And I think honestly, like seriously, whatever you've been saying so far, like I can relate to it. It's really good to have these sort of role models who are breaking those barriers and, living a life which they fully want to live by their rules, by their values, and create a life of their own. So I think for me, like as well, like I think this is so important that we're talking about right now. And of course, there will be people who disagree with it, but that's fine, to each their own. So I think it's good that we're talking about it. That's all I want to say. So, but today, honestly, I really want to celebrate and recognize Fatma on this podcast episode, because you have done coming back and then finding your first role and then finding a job in Careem afterwards, and your entire Careem journey, which we're going to get to as well in a bit.
I did not want to go to the US. What had happened was I'd gone to NUST, the NUST Business School. I was, I was the second batch of NUST Business School. And I had a really nice life. My dad got posted to the US. My brother was already in the US studying at Georgia Tech. And I was forced to go because my parents were going. And I was really sad. I didn't want to go. In the end, my parents' posting got moved to Saudi Arabia and I still went.
Wow. Okay.
And, the first few months were hard. And culture shock was a real thing because he did not have as much exposure with TV and everything back in, this was in 2001, 2002.
Oh, wow.
And I moved into Washington College, which is the first private college of the United States. And I got a scholarship. Okay. And I went there, and it was a 99% conservative white population. I was the only Pakistani at the school. There was probably 10 international students, right? So the first few months were a bit hard. I think I cried a lot. I cried a lot. But the good thing is that I'd done a year and a half at NUST, or 3 semesters at NUST, and that education had given me enough that 2.5 years of the US school credits were transferred. So I think I did not party throughout undergrad because I did not understand that culture. And I was I'd come from a relatively more conservative family. So I remember when I said I want to play rugby, I did not tell my parents what I'd be wearing, because you wear shorts, and there was no digital media then. So I did not tell them till much later, even after I graduated, that that's what I do. My parents came to drop me, and then, we didn't have enough money, so I didn't go back and forth. So I stayed in there. But the college was really, really nice. So I got to do a semester in the US, in London. At London School of Economics, study abroad, and a semester in Turkey. It was really nice. And then when I was about to graduate, my dad said, like, listen, masters bhi kar lo, kyunki uske baad shaadi honi hai. So I talked to the dean over there. There was no counseling, there was nothing. So like the dean of the school, who was really impressed with me, said, I went to University of Pittsburgh, you go to University of Pittsburgh too.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I only applied there. And I went to University of Pittsburgh. And after I finished, I tried to get a job in the US, and I got one at E-Trade Financial. It was like a financial brokerage firm, but I didn't get the H-1B, nor did my brother. And at the time, my parents were in Dubai, so I moved to Dubai.
Okay.
And I took up investment banking because I thought it was cool. I was like, okay, it's cool. Not a lot of women. I'd heard there's not a lot of women in it. So back in 2007, 2006, I had heard that there's not a lot of women in this. I said, I'll do it. I got a job there, and then the struggle started. As soon as I joined, a year and a half later, the financial crisis hit. So then I did odd jobs here and there till I got another job, and then that was a startup. This is back in 2012, and that died because startups weren't a thing in the Middle East then. And then I worked with a company that did logistics, and I would be out all day. I would do event logistics. I did big event logistics, like the Formula One, the Dubai World Cup, Sheikh Mohammed's guests. My company had them. So I had 100 BMWs escorting the richest people in the world everywhere. And so then somebody told me Uber was coming to Dubai. So I started looking at Uber, and Careem kept popping up. So I had a conversation with the Careem founders, Magnus, for instance. Mudassir is my role model. Mudassir is my idol. But my first love at Careem was Magnus. And they offered me a job in their call center at 1/66th of the money that I was making.
Oh my God.
In the company. And I thought about it for 10 minutes and I took it.
Can I ask why?
Yes. Magnus, it'll be funny. You know, when we talk, there's a shine in our eye when we're excited. Magnus had that shine in his eye. His eyes were glinting. He picked up like whatever he'd made, and he came and showed it to me. We're sitting in a server room. Our legs were touching. This is how tiny the server room was. And he'd made this, and I was like, I've never seen this. I'd already worked at corporates. I didn't have access to the CEO. I was just like, junior level. And I said, it would be amazing to work and love work so much. And I ended up loving it that much, because I feel like when the founders love what they're doing and they're as excited, it rubs off on all the company. So I joined the call center and then made my way up. I did a lot of jobs. I was working at the call center from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. And then from 4 p.m. to like 8 p.m., I would do anything Magnus or Mudassir would ask me to, because I wanted to learn everything. So there was a joke that there was competition between me and Mudassir to who's the first one in and who's the last one out. Everyone said both of us didn't have any lives because we'd stay at the office.
Oh my God.
Only.
Even if I can ask Fatma, like, why? Because you stayed in Careem for almost 5 years?
Yeah, almost 5.
Within 5 years in the same company, right? At that point where, let's say you were paid less when you started off, right? Starting off from a call center job. I started off with a call center job as well when I moved from Pakistan to Estonia. So I can relate to that part. It's a little stressful. But I just want to understand why staying with Careem for 5 years, and what was like the biggest learning that came out of it for you as a person?
The biggest learning that came out of me, for me, was that you always have a certain time at a company, and you need to know when your time's up. Only progress so much at a company. Like at a startup, what happens is when you don't have a lot of funding, you will get a certain caliber of, you'll get a certain talent. As you start getting in more money, you'll start pulling in people from other companies, right? So I saw that after the head of expansion, in my mind, there was not much higher I could go. I could move horizontally. I could not move vertically. I could not move vertically up. So that was one reason, right? The other thing is, after I'd done a bunch of launches, all the regional GMs had learned how to launch. It was simple. So we didn't quite need me to go and launch teams. And I was really burnt out. If you're working 20, 22 hours a day, and that was it for the first 2.5 years, and then you travel so much, you're tired. So essentially, I wasn't even leaving Careem. I was going to take a sabbatical. And in the sabbatical, I decided to do my lifelong dream, because my undergrad and my grad school was decided for me.
Right.
You're going to go to America, you're going to go here, you're going to go to Pittsburgh.
Right.
And I'd want to go to MIT for my MBA, which people don't get the connection, but there's a big, long story, which I'll tell you later. So I decided to go to MIT. So I decided to apply. I got in. That was a 1-year sabbatical. And I was meant to go back. So I thought, maybe, getting my MBA, think about it. And Mudassir said, come back with your learnings. But whilst I was at MIT, Careem got acquired by Uber.
Yes.
And for me, the best thing about working at Careem was the culture. And in my pea-sized brain, I thought that the culture might change, because now Uber's coming in, there'll be transition, people are going to leave, people are going to stay. I didn't know how it was going to happen. So I decided that I was going to...
When like a startup gets acquired and all of these, major shifts happen, it does affect the culture to a certain extent.
It does. And I think that, there was a lot of news about Uber and women engineers, and that was really high up. And so do I regret the decision? To a certain degree, sometimes, yes. But then I wouldn't have had all the learnings.
Exactly. Yes.
Some very tough learnings that I've had to have.
Yeah.
And I feel like your growth stops after a while if you stay at a company for way too long, unless it's a corporate where you can go from being an E8 all the way up to the CEO, because the companies like Unilever and stuff, you stay there for 25 years and you make it. That's not the startup culture, and that doesn't happen in startup. Your growth is stunted unless and until you take a step to learn more.
Yeah. But then after MIT, did you happen to go back to Dubai or to Pakistan then afterwards?
So this was the other thing. What had happened was I was having conversations with Mudassir before I even left, that I wanted to go to Pakistan.
Right.
But Pakistan, I believe that the best team, and I'll always believe that, of Careem was in Pakistan. Super talented people, super packed with talent. And most of them are like founders of really cool companies. You take all the names, there are Careem Pakistan people. There are more Careem Pakistan successful startups than any other Careem city, right?
Yep.
So I told them I want to go there, but Junaid was MD. I wasn't going to get the MD position over Junaid, who's done a phenomenal job. And you had Tala Ansari, you had like Nokhez, you had these crazy skillful people. So there was no place for me in Pakistan. I said, I'll take a pay cut and I'll go to Pakistan, because I really wanted to be in Pakistan. And he said, I would want you in Dubai. And at that point in time, probably Junaid and I butted heads a lot, and we made a phenomenal team. We could not work together.
Right.
And to be fair, I was very tough with him as well.
Yeah.
So I was told that Dubai it is. And something in me had wanted to come back to Pakistan, and I'd been saying it for a couple of years. So what happened was, when I did resign, I got an opportunity with KeepTruckin. It was moving me to Pakistan. And, it was the perfect opportunity. So I ended up in KeepTruckin in Pakistan.
Amazing. But then how was that whole move for you? Because I can imagine, did you come back with a culture shock as well? Because Pakistan, of course, had changed so much.
I asked my parents, Pakistan had grown up a lot more.
Wow.
And become very open, at least in the cities that I was. You had to be a disciplinarian to get people to work. They're very skilled. They're super smart, but discipline is a lack.
Wow.
And obviously there's other stuff that there's a lot of corruption and all of that I won't get into, because, I did not deal with any of that. Sure. But the shock was there. I was like, I felt like I led a more conservative life, maybe I and the US than I did experience here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But then, Fatma, during Careem, if I can maybe backtrack a little bit, during Careem, you also had a chance to work in other Middle Eastern countries as well, right? So how was that
Yeah.
experience for you?
Amazing. I saw all of Middle East.
Nice.
I saw the people, I saw the culture, similar,
Okay.
but Beirut's really different. So I got to travel a lot, but I was already well traveled, so that wasn't a big deal. The
Mhm.
thing is, once I came to launch Pakistan, I just fell in love.
Wow.
So I stayed here 9 months. And during that time, if I had to launch something, I'd go for a little bit and I'd come back.
Mhm.
So I traveled everywhere. I said I never want to go back to Pakistan when I left.
Right.
And I just, fell in love with Pakistan.
Do you know what made you fall in love with Pakistan the first time you came back?
I think it was the people. I think it was their hospitality. I think I was shocked at the level of talent. There are such smart people in our country. We're always appreciating the West. We're always appreciating that.
Mm-hmm.
If there's the right kind of leadership, if there's the right kind of investment, and I'm going to talk about that, if they
Yep.
start investing in themselves, you said
Yep.
investing in 25.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you work hard in your 20s, you're investing in yourself. I think if you opt to go for an MBA later on in life, you're investing in yourself. I think if you're honest with yourself, you're investing in yourself. Invest in yourself in your 20s to reap benefits in your 30s and your 40s, because you'll be much better for it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being lazy, partying, and thinking that's the way life is.
Mm-hmm. True. I love that.
I've done all of that. And now I sound like, okay, she's done all of that. But I worked really, really hard, I swear. I was moving back to Pakistan after 17 years. And at that point in time, I still wasn't that close to my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be with them, but I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's Islamabad. I'll have a distance. So I set up a place in Pakistan and I started working at KeepTruckin. So that's how KeepTruckin happened. And I did have options. I was offered a few positions in Boston. I
Mm-hmm.
had the option to go back to Careem, but I just wanted to come back home. I wanted to belong. And I think I was at that age. I was,
Mm-hmm.
30, 37 then. And I was like, I've never had a sense of belonging. I've always been an outsider. I want to be an insider. And also, I'm one of those people that is very idealist about wanting to contribute to, Pakistan. So bringing Careem to Pakistan still gives me goosebumps. I still
Yeah.
talk about it. I say, when I came, there was no Careem. When I left, there was Careem.
Yeah.
And yes, the whole team built it, but Mudassir sent me to do it. So that makes me really happy. With KeepTruckin, I was happy because the team was very small when I
Mm-hmm.
joined, and I expanded to a lot of people. And so it just makes me happy.
And how
Giving
long
back
were
to
you in KeepTruckin for, Fatma?
almost about 2 years. I was there
Oh,
for about 2
okay.
years. I think it was really good at KeepTruckin, but I think what happens is when you're working in Pakistan, and the whole management team, the rest of the management team
Yes.
is all the way in the US,
Yep.
you feel a little left out. They made quite an effort to make sure that I wasn't, but I was feeling it, and I felt like and I was the country head, but there was also functional heads, so
Right.
I didn't quite know where I stood.
Right.
And it wasn't their fault. They said that it was going to be like, but the main reason was I had to work US hours. And as somebody who's suffered with mental health issues
Yep.
and about it quite openly, and somebody who wants to be very positive, just
Yeah.
working through the night, sleeping through the day really was taking a toll on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided that I was gonna leave. And this is where like people are like, that was a really good job. It was paying really well. You're making a lot of money. But I think for me, at this age in life, happiness
Yeah.
and mental health, being satisfied is really, really important. And I
Sure.
think a lot of people will say that that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
stupid, but you only live once. I was not able to go anywhere on weekdays, and on weekends I was too tired. You work Friday till 4 a.m. You
Yeah.
wake up on Saturday, and Sunday you just have to be rushing.
Mm-hmm.
I miss them. I miss KeepTruckin a lot. I miss
Yeah.
Careem a lot. But I think for my selfish reasons, and I think we all need to be selfish in life,
For sure.
I made those decisions. Not many people understand it. My dad still says, I can't believe you left KeepTruckin. But he's really
No, but I think all of these decisions, are a result of that personal growth and development that you've always been striving for, right? Whether at MIT, whether at Careem, all the decisions that you made are basically a result, and then an evolution that continues, connecting the dot, as people say, right?
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But I think, Fatma, you mentioned something like right now, you just had said something in your a while ago about being someone who's bubbly and who's energetic, and it does take a toll sometimes. And
Yes, it does.
I just want to understand that side better because I feel like there's two aspects to it. One, and this is something coming like from personal experience, people might relate, might not, I mean, to each their own. But for me, I have seen that if you are the energetic, the bubbly one, you're not taken seriously. Two, sometimes you need to forego your mental health to keep the energy in the room, and it takes a
Sure.
fucking toll on
It takes a
you.
big toll.
It does.
Yes.
It does.
Well, look, as far as being taken seriously, I've had that all my life. My parents said to me, I heard some news today, which I can't share, but I will share soon on LinkedIn. And, we were sitting together and having a serious conversation. And I got a WhatsApp and I got up and started dancing. And I was like, oh my God, I made this. It's like something that I've been excited about, right? And my mom said, nobody takes you seriously, do they? And, I realized, and a lot of times my parents have said it. My dad, when he first went to the KeepTruckin office and he saw how many people there were, and he went to one of the guys, does she really is the boss of all of them? And the guy's like, yeah. I'm like, how? So I've had that all my life. I've had that at work as well. They've told me you need to be more serious, but I feel like life's too short, right? I can be serious when I need to be, and I can also have a good time. And this is my personality. So for the longest time, I was very influenced by about what people told me I had to be. Hey, you need to be more serious. So I'd be serious. Somebody would tell me you need to be less bossy. I'd be less bossy. And so when you're a weak personality in the sense that you're easily influenced by people, you are totally confused and you're not yourself. So this is myself. I have a high level of energy. I'm usually very cheerful. And when I'm not, yes, I feel pressure because people can know in seconds that I'm not.
Yeah.
That really bothers some people because I bring the energy, I bring the life, but the people that are closest to you will understand, and people at work will also understand that there's times when, I can't be this person. But I will tell you that during the time that I was not my best self mentally and I was struggling with some form of depression, nobody could have known because that's when I put up my biggest face out there, right? And so I realized that I need to realize what emotion I'm feeling, and I need to let it out. Now, how I let it out is something that I need to work on, but I cannot not be myself. And so I am pretty much myself. I get angry and I show it. I get excited and I show it. I work with teams, and when I'm happy with them, they will know. I will not. When I am upset with them, they'll know. And the thing is, sometimes I have been known to be a bit rude. I don't like it because you should always treat people the way you want to be treated. So every time I react to something, then I say, how would I feel if somebody done this to me? And so that personal growth and that kind of work really helps. And I'm not perfect. And there's a long time, and nobody's going to be perfect. But two things have helped me. One, realizing that I am most mentally at peace when I'm myself. And another aspect that is coming very very beautifully into my life is my relationship with God, which developed recently. And that's changed the way I look at life, because you know what, the only person who can judge me is God. And if I'm doing right by him, I don't think I care what other people have to say or do. He's the one who's going to forgive me. He's the one who's going to lead me to the right way. And I have a big journey there. I'm working on that journey. But I'm very proud to say that now, with knowing that I can trust God and I can do right by him, I don't much care for the worldly ways or how you're supposed
beautiful.
to act.
Yes. That is so beautiful, Fatma. Oh my God. Wow.
It's very recent. The last 2 years. The last 2
years. Beautiful.
Because I've had a rough time with that as well. But it's just in recent times, I could write a book about how impressed I am by our religion and our concept of religion. So I try to follow that. Not there yet. There's a lot of things, like if people are listening and they're extremely religious, they'll have 10,000 things to say. But every day is your own. And the only person who can judge me is God. Or sometimes my parents. I allow them sometimes.
A little quota of, yes.
A little quota, yes.
Amazing. But Fatma, I really want to know, because again, talking about pressure, yes, there is a pressure about, having a certain personality, but also there's a little bit of added pressure if you've had a good, let's say, experience of working with, let's say, Careem, if you've had this experience of studying in MIT, and you always have, like, people see that, right? And they make this sort of a judgment that ye banda to matlab hamesha hi, there's always going to be climbing the ladder, top, right? So that peer pressure is also, I think, is toxic sometimes. And I think for the person going through that, I think it does add another layer of, the question that, I mean, it's very famous in our society. I think my society ka main, like one of the main questions hamara hai, log kya kahenge, right?
Yeah.
I think ye wala jo aspect jo aata hai, right? Because considering your journey, even after Careem, even after MIT, choosing options, how do you choose your next project, right? I'm just trying to understand, like, was there ever that sort of a perspective in your decision making where log kya kahenge?
So I didn't have it as much as people around me had it. Right?
Yeah.
So look, in the beginning, for sure. And one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my career is I decided to launch my own startup.
Mm-hmm.
And that was extreme peer pressure. Like everyone that I knew, everyone that I talked to was like, oh my God, you work so hard. You should be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Why are you not an entrepreneur? Investors were telling me, you've worked at Careem. Look at all these Careem people becoming founders. And honestly, I did not want to. Because here's the thing, right? Founders do not do everything on their own. Founders have people that work their behinds off to get the work done. And good founders will give you credit. Mudassir did, Ubaid and Shoaib did. I'm sure the next company will. And so there is a mindset, right? Like I always wanted to be in the background. I'm an operations person.
Right.
I don't want the glamour. I don't want the glitz. I don't want any of it. I just want to work hard and get recognized, which we talked about extensively, which I don't want anymore as well. I just want to know that I'm working hard and it's doing something, right? So you have to know yourself. But, I was told that I should do a startup. Pakistan had money flowing in. I was offered money to do a startup. I was so reluctant. I told them, no, I don't want to be a single founder. So they found me a founder.
Wow.
I didn't do any research. He probably did some research. He's a great guy. I'm a great person. We just didn't work out together, right? But also, I think part of it was I really didn't want to be a founder. And so when we first started talking, I told him, listen, let me not be a founder. Yeah. I'll just work for you as the COO. It was my dream job to be the COO company.
Yeah.
I realize now is not a dream job for me, but you have to experience it.
Sure.
So I think that's not the first, but the last time I considered peer pressure a thing.
Oh.
I said, I will not consider peer pressure a thing. I will do what tells me. Now, when I said yes to COLABS, you should have seen what people said, right? They said, how do you go from being a tech person to selling chairs, selling real estate? The kind of judgment that I got was incredible. Not from one person, from multiple people in the ecosystem, from multiple people that I knew. And I just decided to block all the noise up because I knew that what COLABS was doing was building a startup community. And yes, I did not last long there as well. I stayed for 1 year and I decided to not do the day-to-day not because I wasn't enjoying it, because it wasn't challenging enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't giving me sleepless nights and I wasn't solving for problems. It was just very mundane, everyday tasks that had to be done. And I thought, I can do better.
Yeah.
But after leaving KeepTruckin, going into a startup, the startup failing on my part, me leaving the startup, which, within 4 months, you can imagine my own circle gave me so much crap. So much crap. You cannot imagine. Like, I will never forget all these people saying, oh, but didn't you know how he was? And I was like, well, I was going into this. You knew I was going into this. Why didn't you have that conversation? And why are you assuming it was him? I think like if we meet, we'll be on good terms, but it wasn't his fault. It wasn't my fault in the sense we're not horrible people. It's just we didn't click, but also our fault in the sense that we didn't spend enough time getting to know each other, do this together. It's like a marriage, by the way. Doing a startup. It's really difficult. But the kind of people that came and passed judgments later, some of them have been cut out of my life because, you need to cut some people out of your life. Some people, are still there. And there's so many comparisons. What are people that were at Careem doing now? What position do we have? The new position that I've gotten, it's a really good position, but it's not a very senior position. And, my dad did ask me that question. And I said, listen, for me, what matters is what am I going to do out of this role? So in Pakistan, we're still stuck on position kya hogi, aap kis cheez ke head hoge. I think that destroys you. So I've decided, no, if I can go from being COO of a startup at 27 to a call center agent for Careem at 27, that doesn't faze me anymore. What fazes me is what kind of company I'm going for. Am I making, and I don't ask for outrageous money, by the way. I think that you can get a lot of money, but you have to prove your worth. So the higher you ask for, the higher the expectation. So be very careful when you're asking for crazy amounts of money. Every company that I've gone into, I've kind of negotiated something that works for me, and then proven my worth and gotten more than I ever could have, right? And so you just need to be very, very careful. Another thing is people in Pakistan, mostly what I've seen is that they're like, "Hacha, manager kab banenge?"
Yes.
You know how hard it is to be a manager? 90% of your time is sorting out people's issues. 90% of your work is what your team is doing. So as an individual contributor, I can go in there and I can put in 24 hours and take out something amazing. But when my team is responsible and then I have to stand there and defend my team, it's difficult. So I think we should slow down and we should really be careful.
But in terms of your decision making now, Fatima, I'm so glad that you're talking about all of this, honestly, because I mean, there's just raw truth, in this whole conversation that we're having. So I'm really glad that you're sharing all of this. But I really want to know, like, how has it changed for you now? Like, what do you incorporate in your decision making now in terms of what is the next project going to look like? What is my next role going to look like? For example, even, the new project that you're jumping on right now, like, what was your thought process behind it? Like, what are you looking for right now?
I'm looking for the company values and if people live by those values. So I talk a lot to the people, and when I'm talking to them, when I get to ask questions, I ask about the culture. I ask about what people are doing. And you know what? You ask the right questions. I'm really good at asking questions, by the way. I got an award at MIT once for a speaker had come and there was an award for best questions and I got it. And I'm really proud of it. I dig in deep. I've done so many interviews over the years and I've talked to so many people and I love interacting with people, right? Not networking, but deep conversations when I'm interviewing. I do a lot of pushing and I get to know.
You need to share those tips with me because I don't want to have on surface level conversations anymore with people. I
will, for sure. But, I definitely talk to them, ask a lot of pointed questions about what are people doing? How long have they been there? How much growth have they had? What makes them excited? What does their day look like? So for me now, what's important is founders that are transparent, work that is laid out, like clear expectations of what is needed and what kind of people I'm going to be working with. That's very important. Look, you learn from people. So what I'm really proud of is, I think I might have said this before, when I was leaving Careem to go for my MBA, there was a fight in Careem on who is going to take my team members into which team. There was a bidding process. Like people were like, well, I had an amazing team. They all were smarter than me. They all knew better than me at what they needed to do, right? And sometimes they would say, you make us do all the work. I'm like, that's because I hired the best team. I don't need to do anything. I just tell you what to do. I'm not embarrassed to say when I don't know something. I'm a generalist. So what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to pull together a really good team that's going to execute what needs to be executed. And when I need to step in, I'll step in. I hire people 10x smarter than me, 20x smarter. I'm always, somebody told me not to say this, but I'm usually the dumbest person on the team. Like not, you know what I mean? Like if
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah.
He told me, don't ever say that again. I said it. I am looking for people that can actually replace me if I'm hit by a truck the next day. And so I'm always grooming somebody. I'm always making sure that that's happening. And I'm always making sure that I'm honest to my work. So yeah, my decision is usually now based on how exciting the role is. So the role, and I've realized now that after working on different roles and everything, launch really excites me. Launching something, building something from scratch really excites me. So I'm going to be launching COO role, which I thought was my dream role. I started with finance, which I thought was my dream role, but I've learned. And once you've learned, you should just then focus on what you do. And the opportunities will come your way. I had to wait though. And I'll talk about that after your next question.
But my next question is kind of like a follow-up to your decision-making process part. Like, do you follow your gut in decision-making? And if you do, like...
I have a really strong gut feeling. And
Nice.
my brother is very important for me in my decision-making. My brother is my best friend. And, you know, we had the best relationship growing up. But like, I run everything through him, right? Like everything. And the company that I'm talking to, I was talking to about 6 months ago.
Right.
I was talking to another very big company, right? And from the get-go, my brother's like, that company has a big name. You will be very unhappy in that role. I don't want you to do it. And I was just like, okay, this is a big name, right? I'm going to do it. But a few interviews later, my gut would crunch up when I would talk to them. So I intentionally screwed up the interview. Because I didn't even want to have that option, which I shouldn't have done. But the gut was very, very strong. It's a really big name. It's one of the biggest names, right? And I think the person who got the job is a much better fit. But like, my brother is my sounding board and my gut is my sounding board. So I said, I said goodbye to COLABS full time because I'm still their advisor and I still talk to them. End of September, mid-September to end of September. And then I took a break. And I was talking to a lot of companies. Like, honestly speaking, I spoke to so many people and my gut would just say no. And then I decided I wasn't going to look at anything till like December, January. And I wanted to start January. And in January, you know, when this came back, it just happened. And that, one, the belief in God. Second, my gut was like, no to a lot of things. And, you know, the one thing I realized, people talk a lot about having a network. People talk about, you know, making this network and contact lists and everything. And mashallah, I have a really good network and I would help everyone out. So the one thing that really hurt me in the last 4 months is as I was sitting and deciding what to do next, nobody checked up on me. You know who checked up on me? My LinkedIn followers. These lovely people that said, you're not posting. What's going on? I ran into a few of them at different areas and they say, hey, you're Fatima Mazhar. We follow you on LinkedIn. We love your content. So, you know, my mom, I was like, you know, I'm a celebrity. She's like, yeah, right. And then a few times I was like out with her and somebody was like, oh, you're Fatima Mazhar. I was like, see, but that's a joke. Well, in the end, you have to realize that you can have the biggest network. You can have worked. And I reached out to a few people that I haven't before. I've never done that. Whenever I've been in a situation where I don't have a job, I've just worked really hard to get a job. And I'm really shy about asking people. So this time around, I asked people, hey, if you hear of an opportunity, I'm doing this. And they said, for sure. And I never heard back from them. So what I've realized is you're pretty much on your own. You know, you can make the biggest network, but when things are not going your way, I know for a fact that if somebody that I knew really well and had worked here wasn't getting a job, I'd check on them. And I still do. I just realized not many people do. It's not going to change who I am. I'm still going to do it. But I think the first time I was very hurt emotionally, that nobody really cared, you know? So I'm glad that I got this job and I'm glad that I did this, but I do know that it's you, your parents, and your Allah. And that's all you want.
So Fatma, I have a really, really important question. And I think this is for most of us who will be listening to this again and again and again, and as many times as we need it, because I think what all of us have a little fear of is starting off from scratch again, right? Which is why we continue to build up on wherever we left off. But like everything else, where we go to or whatever's next should be better than where we are right now. But I think with your journey, if there's one thing that I've noticed, you've never shied away from starting from scratch. It's okay if the next job is offering you a lower pay, you know, at like a customer support role or something like that. And you've always done that. So, and how has this been for you? Like, where does this come from? Honestly, like the curiosity to learn, being okay with starting from zero again, you know, this whole thing, like risk-taking attitude, like where does this come from?
So look, I've not had a lot of confidence in myself when it comes to a lot of things, but the ability to work hard has always been there. And I've always believed that if you work hard, you will be able to show your worth and your work. And I have a very curious mind. I like diversity. I like new things. And so from the Careem journey onwards, it's always been about talking to the founders, seeing how excited they are, and then saying yes, right? Barring a few exceptions where peer pressure came in. And, maybe I think I panicked a little because I was the only one in the Careem ecosystem not starting something.
Yeah.
And that's on me, not on anyone else, right? But that was also starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Starting from scratch because I was going to be a first-time founder. I was not going to be paid. There was going to be no money. And so if I'm excited about a company, and if I really want to go in there, I will take a position. So the only time I negotiated really hard was KeepTruckin. Like I wanted a certain amount and I thought that amount was needed to be there. And that was a senior position. And can I tell you how I panicked after I got it? I had massive imposter syndrome. I was like, oh my God, now I have to do all of this. And the panic sets in. But like you then go in and you say, okay, nothing is not doable. I was terrified. I hadn't been living in Pakistan, so I decided to take this position. And I was like, okay, I've asked for a lot of money. I now have to prove to them that I'm worth it. One of the reasons I left, and I told them this, was I felt like I was being paid too much money and not given enough work. And, I don't say that because people are like, oh, she's ban rahi hai. But that's not true. If I'm working, I feel like meri rozi halal ho rahi hai. And that's very, very true, right? So I think if you really believe in yourself and if you're not egoistic, which I was when I was younger, but age has humbled me, God has humbled me, circumstances have humbled me. I realized that you can make your way up, right? And I've worked in mainly startups. Startups growth is really, really fast if you do well and if you put in the hard work. So I was able to do that. Now, I haven't taken a really junior role where I'm going next. It is a huge role, but I have taken a pay cut. And I've taken that because I believe in the potential of this company. And I also believe that once I show them what I'm capable of, they will find me valuable. All the good companies do. And that's why I choose good companies that will eventually say, yes, you're worth it, right? So that's why the culture comes in and their values come in and you have to see how they value you. So sometimes it is taking a cut on your position. Sometimes it's taking a cut on the money. But obviously you have to look at your expenses and have that rule of saving, because women are not financially literate. I feel like I'm still not financially literate. My brother does everything on Excel. He has a budget for the month. He doesn't exceed it. Wow. I will spend like crazy. I will spend everything I make, right? And I think that also might be because I don't have any dependents. I help out my family because I like to. But if tomorrow, like when I wasn't earning, I wasn't doing anything. So circumstances are certainly different, and the ones had done well for themselves. But if you think that you can get a job, my father said, I'm not going to help you. My father said, I'm not going to get you a car. My father said, I'm not going to buy you. I just bought an apartment a year and a half ago for the first time by myself. That's when I could. Amazing. And it's still being paid off, right? Because it's I didn't pay for it in cash. But my father really said that you have to earn it. He said, I'll give you the first down payment for your car. And after that, you'll have to buy everything yourself. And so you just need to understand what your values are, what your priorities are, and that will happen. You just need to look at the company and their potential. When Magnus told me, hey, I can only offer you 6,000 dirhams a month. Yeah. But as the company grows, you will grow. Wow. He seemed honest. So I said, yes. He gave me 24 hours to think about it. And anyone, Careem is in Shata Tower. Shata Tower in Dubai has the slowest elevators in the world. So I just took this long elevator ride back. It stopped on every floor and I came down and I was driving back to my job that I was at that time. And I was like, I don't want to. So I went and I resigned. And while I was driving, I parked my car on the side because I'd gotten a few tickets because of being on the phone and Dubai crazy. Yeah. And I said, I take it. And if you listen to them, they'll say, we thought she was crazy. We didn't know, we couldn't believe that she took it. It's really those days, I don't think I can ever describe how amazing those days were. The starting days of a startup are beautiful. They are incredible. It's nothing like it. So
amazing. And if I can ask, Fatma, because since the series is also about investing, but investing not just in terms of money, but investing in mental health, in your energy and your time just wisely in different aspects of life. So if I can ask, like, where do you invest your time and energy the most in right now? Because I do know that you have a lot of creative outlets as well.
Yes.
And you are this bubbly energy energetic person as well that brings, the energy to every room that you walk into. But I really want to know where do you how do you basically prioritize that right now, balancing it off?
So to see how I prioritize it now, it's very important to know how I prioritized it before. And I think my mental health struggle started with, so I'm very empathetic. So my therapist and my life coach told me the problem with people who are empathetic versus sympathetic is empathetic people take on other people's problems on them. So in my 20s, I was the person that everyone went to vent. And I would try to solve the world's problems. I had the biggest group of friends that you can look at. Like, I was bullied in high school, everything. I could not say no. And that landed me in a lot of trouble because all my energy was for people. And at the moment, if you ask me now, at 41. So a lot of my energy now is spent on spending time with my parents, my sister who's autistic, my horses, and the friends that I've made. So now my time is spent between work, my parents, which I prioritize. A lot of time is spent with my nieces. So when my nieces, I don't do anything else. I love, and my body, when she came into our lives 10 years ago, I was a completely different person. And she would never see me because I would ignore my family, be always out with friends, traveling. And she said once the nieces came, she got to know me. As the years have gone by, she's gotten to know me. And, this time around when she was here, she was like, I can't believe, thank you for spending so much time with us.
Oh.
And, that was such a slap on my face because, she felt it. Because I was in such a people-pleasing phase that the people that you ignore the most are the people that love you the most. When you're in that people-pleasing / I'm going to do this. So my happiness, I spend a lot of time by myself as well. I absolutely love it. And before I couldn't spend a minute alone. And so I'd be watching something on Netflix by myself. I would be reading. I read a lot. And I love reading. And, a lot of people want to share what they're reading. And I don't read to share. I read to learn. And so I'll read a lot. I'm a buff with crime. I don't know why. I love them. And, I'm always learning a new skill. So when I first Corona started, I picked up polo and I also picked up flying. I'm learning how to fly a plane.
Really?
Yeah, but that stopped because Walton in Lahore got shut down because it's going to be commercial. But I'm going to continue it because I'm moving to Islamabad. I'll continue it in Islamabad.
Amazing.
So
okay.
I do a lot of investing in myself in terms of I will now make time for physical activity, meditation courses. I will go on to yoga retreats and really self-care. My skin exploded when I came to Pakistan. And so I spent a lot of time looking after my skin because, your body is what you have to live in. And we spend so little time taking care of a body. And that doesn't mean I put makeup on. I just really take care of my hair, my skin, myself. I still don't eat right, which is really bad. But I'll get there one day.
Amazing.
So my investing, I feel like everyone should first think of investing in themselves.
Right.
And then think of investing their money, which I started doing. And by the way, I came into some money because of the work that I'd done and honestly had no idea. I was 37. I had a lot of money. I didn't know what to do. And you know who I had to go to? My dad. So I think we should think about what investing is. We should talk about these things. We should talk about saving. My brother was very young. He's been in finance on his life. And he said, this percentage of my salary is going to go to rent. This percentage I'm going to save. And he had it sorted. And we had the same upbringing, same parents, same everything, right? He went to the US, I went to the US. But I think we inherent, or maybe, they think a certain way, but I didn't. So I could have saved a lot of money. I spent it on people, trying to please them.
Right.
And those people are nowhere in my life now. FYI, just so if anyone's hearing and they're a people pleaser, you can change. And trust me,
I was in Dubai and I lost my job. The finance job that I had, I lost it.
Yep.
I got a call from somebody in the office saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry you lost your job. By the way, this other colleague has lost her job. You have your parents and your brother here. She doesn't. So can you help her get a job?" And it was such a slap in my face. I'm like, I lost my job too. Just because I have my family here doesn't mean that I have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Also, most of the time when I've needed help in getting a job, I've never been offered it. I've had to work hard for every job that I've gotten. I've had to interview 1,000 times. I've had to try multiple different things to get to where I am. So once, my podcast with Muzammil, some people said she's very privileged.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can't judge me because of the way I speak or the experiences that I've had. I paid for MIT myself. I started as a call center agent at Careem. I worked my way up. I took 200 plus flights to launch Careem everywhere.
Yep.
And I had days when I cried myself to sleep more than I had days when I was loved, because it was really, really hard. I didn't have any family time. I sacrificed everything. Family time, friends time, everything to be on the road 70% of the year.
But I really want to know, what is your advice for people in their 20s on how to invest their time, money, and energy?
So I think that they say that the 20s are the best years of your life. A lot of people say this, but I say 20s are the time when you should really, really be focusing on your work, on yourselves, and setting up so that you can have a really nice life in your 30s and your 40s. And if you work hard during your 20s and you are aware of who you are, you're just going to have a really easy time. Don't wait till your late 30s to realize who you are and then have some regrets. Not that I have a lot of regrets, but, working 15, 16 hours and then spending all my time partying meant that I really did struggle with my health, mostly mental. And we think that life is all about partying and life is all about this. But in the end, when you turn into your certain years, you realize, you've not spent enough time with your family. And a lot of people do get married in their 20s as well. Love your spouse, get to know them, spend time with them. In the end, when you're either jobless or you're looking for your next ride, their support is going to mean the world to you. I would say spend your money on developing skills outside of your job. If your job doesn't sponsor them, do it. As I look at the future, start looking at AI courses, start looking at coding courses. Coding and AI are going to be very important for the future, right? Like they are going to define what's there. Crypto is something that goes up and down, but no crypto. One of the things I don't know anything about is crypto, and I feel like my knowledge is really less, so I'm going to start looking into it. And just be honest to your job, and that means don't look for shortcuts. Don't say, oh, the boss is not here today, so I'm just going to do this meager job, because at the end of the day, if you're doing that, you're just being unfair to yourself. Work hard, develop discipline, and that's going to take you to the next phase of your life, and it's going to be very helpful. 20% of salary needs to be saved.
Amazing. Awesome.
You will be really happy that you did.
Amazing.
15% of your salary is supposed to be a rent. If you're paying more than 15% of your salary for rent, you're doing something wrong. 20% needs to be saved. When you're young and maybe single, then don't invest so much on where you live, because you're going to be spending a lot of time at work, hopefully.
True.
And you're going to be out and about, and so where you live at that point in time doesn't matter. Say if you save 20% of your salary, pay less rent, maybe you'll be able to buy something a lot faster than I was able to buy. If I'd been able to save, I would have been able to buy a lot sooner. And even now I've bought something that's going to be made in the next year, so it's still taking time to make. But a lot of the Gen Z and people that are coming up are saying that ownership of houses is not important. But I think as a woman, having property to your name, it's very old school, but I think really does matter. I think you should have a place of your own.
My mom also keeps telling me that. She's like, "Nay, dunya, they can keep shifting their views, but it's important to have something at least of your own."
It is very, very important. I think that, even now with the world going as fast as possible, I have a few people that I know that are breaking up. And the women are staying in that or forcing themselves to stay in that because they don't have anywhere to go. They don't want to go to their parents' house because stigma, and they don't have a house. So you stay in unhappy partnerships, marriages because you haven't thought this through. And so let's think this through. This is mainly for women, but because men do realize, and they do have that dream even now, that I'm going to have a house, I'm going to have a car, I'm going to have this. And so we just need to, that's what investing in yourself means. If you start saving now, save for 10 years, put it in good savings, put it in like bonds, put it in stocks, and multiply.
Amazing. But if I can also ask Fatma, like, what is your advice for women specifically on getting more into the tech scene or the startup space? Let's say, especially in Pakistan and also the MENA region, since you worked in that part as well.
Look, the problem that I faced with getting women is startup hours are not very flexible. As in, they're not very easy because they're long hours. A lot of women don't get the permission. So I think my advice is to any parents that are listening, that let your children go into the startup space. Let them have that experience, trust them, and things are going towards the right way. And I think startups are really, really good because they give you an ownership and they give you a view of running a department, a campaign, whether it be a new product, very early on. And that kind of experience is really, really, really important. And I think like if you look at, the youth of Pakistan now, there's so many people that are wanting to do startups, that are wanting to do this. And I am impressed by the number of women that are in tech, but I think that they need to, because that's going to be the future. You're seeing a lot of corporates struggling, and they will continue to struggle because the world's moving on, right? I was talking to a few corporates as I was doing this, and all of them are talking about digitizing. How do we make things more like startup-like? I was talking to a company that said, we want to bring in people from the startup culture to change our culture, right? So they're also thinking about it. So my advice is to look at that. It's a bit tough in Pakistan right now because a lot of startups are shutting down, but things are not always going to be the same. I think we've learned our lesson. The startups that are existing right now are doing a really good job. And funding, I believe that by July, August, funding is going to start again. This downtime is going to go away. And so that is the place to be.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Fatma. This has been an amazing, amazing episode, honestly, even though we had to cut short in 2 parts. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I hope I wasn't too honest.
I'm glad you were.